let's jump right in. So, welcome everyone to our webinar, Environmental Management for Real Business Impact. I'm going to MC the session, and I'm going to be joined by Angela and Chris at various points throughout. Just a quick intro about myself. I'm a Senior Business Development Manager at Toitū Envirocare, specialising in the manufacturing, transport, waste and energy sectors for my troubles. So my background as a process engineer and materials engineer, and I've worked in the renewable energy sector for years and the energy efficiency sector for years. So in addition to that, I've done a number of roles in manufacturing sectors throughout New Zealand. So I'm really excited to hear the content of what we've got going. Just a very brief introduction. We're going to be talking about management systems and specifically environmental management systems. So I'm very excited about that. So with that in mind, apologies for reading off the screen, but I'm going to give you a bio for both Chris and Angela so you know a little bit about their backgrounds. So Chris is an account lead for the Toitū Enviromark program, which is our version of an environmental management system. He's got 35 years plus experience with management systems across a range of industries. He started his career working in Pitman Moore and Wellington, applying good manufacturing practice to vaccine production. And if anyone's been involved in that industry, you'll know how rigorous it is. And has since worked with ISO 17025 as in ecotoxicology. Got it right, Chris? Ecotoxicology. And ISO 45001 in health and safety and 14001 for environmental management. Chris supports the environmental management plans under the Auckland Unitary Plan to prevent stormwater pollution. And today he'll be sharing why environmental management systems are so valuable, common pitfalls to avoid, and how these systems can drive real benefit across your organisation. We're all about real benefit here, not just ticking boxes, not just empty platitudes. We want to actually deliver real things. Angela is Head of Sustainability at Epicurean Dairy and is an advocate for balancing purpose with profit. She's driven to do all she can to create a better tomorrow for future generations. So Epicurean Dairy are known for their popular yogurt products, The Collective and Moogurt. I love that name. Good. There must have been some interesting conversations around the table when you were coming up with that name, I'm sure, but that's great. Epicurean Dairy is the third largest yogurt manufacturer in New Zealand and is leading the way in best practice sustainability in food manufacturing. So I'm looking forward to hearing Angela speak as well. Epicurean became Toitū Enviromark certified in 2024 and is also B Corp certified. So there's a lot of credentials there. In recent years, Epicurean has also reduced their waste to landfill by 25% and is now looking at tackling, measuring and reducing scope 1 and 2 carbon emissions and doing voluntary internal and external ESG reporting. So that's who we're about to listen to. So with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to Chris and take it away. Chris, tell us all about it.
Fantastic. All right. So thank you everyone for attending. So my goal today is to explain what management systems, specifically environmental management systems, do, what they're intended to do. It's really important, and one of the main messages I want to get across is that one size does not fit all. The components are identical, but how those components are expressed in any organization depends on what you do, how many people you have, and the drivers behind why you need that management system in place. So make sure I hit the right button. There we go. Okay, so why are management systems useful? Well, to understand that, especially for small to medium businesses, it's important to think about how businesses are created and how they grow. So often what happens is the owner will create the business and they're very specialized in their focus. Whatever it is that they're selling to their customers, they're skilled in what they do. They understand it really well and they're really good at it. As the business expands, they bring in competent people to help them do what they're doing. And then the business grows to a point where not everyone knows how to manage all of the components that need to be controlled. So an environmental management system takes that idea and it's normally managed around the same components as ISO 14001. So 14001 focuses on understanding where all the risks can come from and identifies what can go wrong, what it is that you're doing, and how to um, watch those things over time and make sure you're getting the results that you wanted. So critical ideas in here is that you're identifying what it is that you do and how it could go wrong. You then plan how to manage those things that could go wrong. You watch them over time to see they're not going wrong. And then every now and again, probably once a year, you pause and ask the question, can I do better? Now, the ISO standard has used root cause analysis to say, well, historically, where did things go wrong in the past? What was the cause of this disaster that happened, this failure? Um, all of these components you can see on the screen here are part of a complete management system. They're all things that have gone wrong historically and caused major problems, big spills, fires, disasters, that sort of thing. One of the ideas I'd like you to get familiar with is that all management systems are just some kind of vehicle. They help you to do something that you're aiming to do. They're a bit like um, normal vehicles, normal cars. Some are Bedford trucks made for heavy loads. Some are Volvos, they're safe and secure. Some are tuk-tuks, they're just little zippy things that take you around from A to B. In each of these cases, the load they carry is quite different. You can overload a smaller system for a little while, but eventually it's probably going to fall over. So in creating your management system, you're going to be thinking to yourself, how complicated does it need to be? Do we need a lot of controls in place? Are there a lot of people who might not know what's going on? So we need to have really strong internal communication. Are there things that could go wrong? And unless everybody knows vaguely about them, enough to be able to report it, there won't be control. So we need general awareness. Um, how are we going to make sure we're achieving what we wanted? We need to have good monitoring, good measurement, KPIs. Those people need to know what it is that they're doing. So any management system has these kinds of components built into it. So what would you hope to get out of a management system? Well, if you're watching what you're doing, you're going to achieve the goals that you set yourself. So you're going to have good compliance with the things you want to do. If you're watching how you're using resources and you're thinking to yourself, I wonder if I could do better, you're going to be as efficient as possible. You're going to reduce waste. You're going to not create waste at the beginning of your process. That will reduce costs. Your system will be reliable. If somebody important leaves, there's going to be enough instruction left behind that someone can look through it and say, oh, okay, so this is how Chris used to do it. I can see his workings. I can see the records that he made. That makes sense. Yeah, I can do that. And they step in, they do it without any hiccups. Good planning is essential for this. Understanding what could go wrong, that comes from knowing all the things you do. If you know the things you do, you then can say, well, how could that thing go wrong? In a management system, in quality, it's how could I get a substandard outcome from that? In health and safety, it's when we do this, how could someone get hurt? In environmental management, it's when we do this thing, how does it change the environment? It will allow you to minimize your environmental risks and impacts and maximize your opportunities to do better. Never going to promise it's going to be perfect. Stuff happens. People have momentary lapses of reason. They do crazy things. This is trying to manage that best as you possibly can. From our perspective, having a certified management system means that your claims have been assessed and verified by a third party, by someone who's independent, who's qualified to tell if you're doing it appropriately or not, and that simplifies your ability to make claims. If you're wanting to um, put the certification logo somewhere in your product or make claims on your website or whatever it might be, people can have faith that what you're saying is valid. And without the system in behind that, it's just an opinion. So what would this look like in various kinds of organizations? Well, in a professional organization, something like a lawyer or a advertising agency or an architect, it will influence the decisions or the direction you're going in for the work that you're actually doing. You'll be discussing with your client, hey, we could do it this way, we could do it this way, we could do it this way. Here's your environmental choices. Which one do you want to engage with? It will allow you to understand how you change the environment and target those things. As I often say to people like architects, one well-designed building will completely blow out of the water all of your office impacts that you have for the next 10 years. So focus your attention on the things that really matter. Now, if you do really good planning and really good understanding in any management system, you'll understand what the most significant opportunities or risks are. That's one of the brilliant outcomes that comes from this kind of approach. Now, that kind of thinking is going to be different when you come to be when you're a manufacturer. So manufacturing, which is where ISO 14001 originally got engaged with, is all about preventing pollution, right? No big spills, no big fires, no spray drift and grinding powder going over to grandma's washing next door. Um, it gives you an opportunity to look at your processes and say, how can we do those bits better? There's some waste there. There's an opportunity to put a different kind of product in there. Let's transition from something that's very problematic to something that's less problematic. In a health and safety program, that's going to be how do we move from something that could really hurt somebody to something that's just slightly bothersome. It will guide you in deciding what materials to use. It will guide you in thinking about your supply chain. How far do things travel to get to us to use in our product? Can we find one that's closer to ourselves? Agriculture, pollution risks again, kind of a version of manufacturing. Energy efficiency, um, optimizing how you um, relate to the land that you're working on. It's going to be something that more and more larger resale organizations overseas are concerned about, whether you work with Tesco's or Waitrose or whether you're engaged with the Fonterra supplier agreements. Third parties are becoming very interested in understanding what do we know about the food that we're getting? What do we know about the products that we're getting? How can we be assured that those people have done sensible and appropriate things? If you're in a construction organization, compliance. Okay, are you meeting your consent obligations? You've got resource consents, you've got building consents. There's going to be control of sedimentation leaving the site, sediment leaving the site, concrete runoff, cutting, dust, noise, all sorts of things. How do you know you're meeting those obligations? Well, you'll have a system in place. You've identified those risks. You're watching over time to see how well you're doing. If something goes wrong, it gives you the chance to intervene and fix it. And every now and again, you pause and say, can we do better? Big opportunities around construction and demolition waste. That started some 15 or so years ago with the REBRI guidelines, which talked about how to enter into a project and do planning around those things. There's a lot of opportunity with engaging with industry groups. So you might be talking to your industry group and saying, hey, look, we're doing this. Can we come and talk to you, to the rest of the organization about it and explain the opportunities that are there? Service industries, cleaners, events management, transportation, healthcare. It's going to be around your efficiency. And it's also going to be around knowing what to expect when you go to your client's site or when you provide your service. Can you add value to them? Will your people know what good looks like? How will you share that in a way that's palatable to your clients with those clients? financial organizations. So incorporating environmental thinking into product design. So we have a couple of financial organizations that have produced what they call financial tools, financial instruments, which are investment opportunities that bundle a whole lot of environmental things within it. And in designing that, you need to have people who are qualified and appropriate to do those designs. We want to enhance the client's outcome. So there needs to be the monitoring and review built in. The organization themselves needs to walk the talk. They need to be thinking about their own travel, their own office consumables and waste management and things like that. Just giving you a flavor of what environmental management might look like within different organizations. But something I thought was really important to mention is that ISO 14001 covers what it covers, the management system, but it's not going to be sufficient to do a good job within an organization. You're asking your people to change the way they do their jobs. Hardly anyone likes change. It's just horrendous for most people. They really don't like it. So there's going to be the need to explain to your people what's wrong with the way they're doing things now, and therefore you need to move away from that, convince them of that, how much better it's going to be once you're in your new situation, and a very clear progression process from where they were to where you want them to be. Without that, you're going to be fighting uphill all the way. It's going to be really problematic. That's not built into ISO 14001. It talks about communication, but it doesn't unpack it for you. It does, 14001 does talk about harmonizing your systems. If you think about it this way, there's going to be some internal processes. There's going to be certain ways of doing things that you want to be consistent between the various systems that you're running. If somebody needs to report a problem, it'll be the same kind of process for reporting. If you want to understand where risks would come from, you use the same kind of risk identification. This process gives you the opportunity to build institutional knowledge, to create a repository that will explain to people how they're intended to do things. It'll speed up training. It'll make sure that somebody stepping into a role temporarily can get things done. You'll create an overlap of systems between the various business components, whether it be the financial people, whether it be the sales people, whether it be the product people, whether it be service groups, IT, whoever it is. The same way you do things for a management system that you're running, that should be the same way other aspects in the business are running. Okay, so if you were starting from nothing, if you were wanting to create a management system or an environmental management system, where do you start? Start with your foundation. Why are we doing this? What is the driver behind our need to have this kind of management system? What's the scope of what we're trying to control? Are we just managing the Auckland sites? Are we doing all of New Zealand? Are we dealing with the construction sites we work on? Are we trying to influence our industry groups? Get a bit of a view of what you're trying to do here. Know who's in charge. Who's going to run this? How are they going to report it? Create a bit of a process around that. How do you make decisions? Are you going to have some kind of a environmental committee, green team, something like that? Create some information for your staff about how they're intended to behave if there's not a boss around to ask. An environmental policy, basically. Decide how your planning process is going to work. My personal recommendation is always to say, what are all of the where do our staff do all the things they do for us? Where are the locations? When they're in those locations, what do they do on our behalf? What are the normal things they do every day? What are the things we know they're going to do every now and again, but they're very infrequent? What would happen in an emergency in those places? How would the environment be affected in that situation? Once you understand all of the ways you interact with the environment, you can say, how does that change the environment? And there you've got your impact. So the thing you're doing is the aspect, and the way it changes the environment is your impact. That gives you then the ability to decide, well, which of these things are important? Score them in some way, Doesn't really matter which way you do it. You're going to end up with a smaller list of things you're actually going to try and improve. And you want to watch that improvement over time to see how well it's going, and that's monitoring. Now, in my experience, monitoring is the thing that most people are the weakest at. You can expect that you're going to get more control over the outcomes for the business. Those outcomes will be predictable. It'll be easier to keep people on track. You'll have an easier time training new people in those roles. It will reduce the risk that something's going to go wrong. You'll get a bunch of improvements and the opportunity to tell the world about what you're doing. You can rely on it working. It's going to create opportunities to improve other areas of your business. And it gives you the chance to say, time after time, okay, this is what we've achieved now. Could we do better? Continual improvement is not continuous improvement. It's expected to be a periodic check-in to see, could we do better? So that's a general overview of management systems, large amount of information in a short period of time. I'm going to pass over to Angela now and let her talk about her experience of having done this over the last couple of years.
So kia ora everyone, I am Angela and I work for Epicurean Dairy. We're also known more commonly as the collective, which is the yogurts we produce. And I'm here to chat to you today about our experience in developing an EMS with Toito. So a little bit about us. We started in the middle of the GFC in 2010. Great time to start a business. And so we are now 15 years young. So we're a bit of a teenager, but restless and still growing. But that's where we're at in our life cycle. We are the number 3 yogurt manufacturer in the New Zealand market, and we make about 130 to 150 tonnes of yogurt every week. We have 115 staff, and we're quite a diverse bunch. We're made up of about 12 ethnicities, and we're led by a female GM, which we're very proud of. We have a factory in Avondale, and on the same street we have 3 warehouses, and all 4 sites are Toito Enviromark Gold certified. And finally, we've recently become a certified B Corp earlier this year. So here's a sample, a bit of a taste of our yogurts. Hopefully some of you have a few of these in your fridge. We also make squeezable sour cream and the very popular nougat pouches for kids. So to dive into the EMS itself, we started our EMS journey in 2023. And for us, we identified the EMS as an essential part of gaining B Corp certification. And I remember pitching it to the exec, who you will see sitting here on those pallets. And to be completely transparent, it was the only B Corp initiative that we had that had the most uncertainty about it. We didn't really know what was going to be required. So we didn't know if we had blind spots that might cost a lot of money to remedy. We didn't really grasp how much work it was going to be, whether it was going to be a little bit of work or a lot. We didn't really have any idea about that. And most importantly, what value was it actually really going to bring to the business? But we took a leap of faith, and on the basis it was the right thing to do for our business, particularly our size. We are a rapidly growing business, and we're at the stage where we're trying to tighten up processes across the board. In addition, we're looking for a solution to bring environmental management to life for staff. So when developing the EMS, everything was broken down for us, and Chris, who's just spoken, coached us through the way, and he explained why everything we should be doing, what we're doing, and which helped us really find the answers ourselves. And one thing that really stood out to us as we're going through this journey as well is Chris had a really good understanding of our business. So our size, our level of resource, and he only ever gave advice to us on what was practical and what was within our limits. So our first year we started with bronze EMS. So bronze is what I would call entry level. It covers all the basics of what you have to be legally compliant from an environmental perspective. We started here to just get a feel for what was involved and what level of resource was required. And I'm recommending if you start your journey, this is probably the place to start and the way to go just to get a bit of a taste for it. The following year, we made the choice to move to gold, which was about going beyond legal compliance. So this gold is about being proactive and doing more beyond the standard legal compliance. And for us, this level reflected the level of effort we were already putting into sustainability. So it felt a natural fit in the place that we should be. So specifically, what did we gain? Our environmental obligations were broken into bite-sized chunks, and we moved at a pace that was manageable. And there were a couple of standout tools for us in bronze. We gained an improved health and safety register, which enabled us to make take a more thorough review and improve documentation of our health and safety risks in the business. In gold, off the back of looking at our aspects and impacts, there was a prioritisation tool that gave us a very linear view of prioritising environmental projects. So this looked at not only the usuals of climate impact and legal compliance, but it also took into account things like interested parties, so the people that are actually interested in what's happening in your business and how they're impacted by their business. It takes their views into account when it comes to prioritising environmental projects. So this really helped us structure the direction on what projects we should be focusing on and why. In addition, in gold, we gained greater structure and accountability of managing those environmental projects. So now I'm going to give you a bit of a live example of one thing that we learned in EMS, which was actually in our first year in bronze, and how we brought it to life with staff engagement. Because ultimately with a system like this, having staff engaged and on board is actually going to be key to success. So an area we covered in bronze was the Resource Management Act, which for us, we referenced the Auckland Unitary Plan. So section E8, which you will see up there on the screen, covers stormwater compliance. So as most of you know, stormwater drains are there to catch the rainwater and they direct it into the drains, much like the name suggests. There's no filters, what goes in, what goes out. So what goes in the stormwater drain is what comes out in the river and then ends up ultimately in the ocean. So we have 3 stormwater drains on our site, which sparked a bit of curiosity as to learn a bit more about our stormwater drains. So I contacted the council and asked where our stormwater drains led. And lo and behold, they sent me this little map that you'll see down here on the right, and the little purple line that you can see from our factory and pops out at a little stream, which was literally only 5 minutes walk from our factory. So grabbed a few people and we walked to the part of the map and had a look at the outlet. And we saw water flowing out from the outlet and into the stream. So although it was a very simple thing to do, it really did connect the dots for some people and raised awareness of the stormwater drains on our site. They were all very curious and they started asking lots of questions around our water management on site. So while it was fresh, we seized the opportunity to follow through with some improved processes on site. So specifically, what you'll see in the pictures here is we started implementing taking away old equipment after CapEx installs So it wasn't sitting around getting rusty. So previously, some of that stuff might have sat around for a while before someone took it away. Now we get onto it straight away because rusty metals can contaminate stormwater drains. We also improved our bin management, and what wouldn't be a sustainability presentation without a picture of a rubbish bin? We had to do a couple of things with our bins. So we have to keep the lids closed to try and avoid the rain getting in. And also because we do deal with yogurt, we have a lot of wet rubbish. So we had to tie in some our rubbish bags before rubbish went in to make sure that the bins weren't leaking. So before the EMS, we wouldn't have really been aware of both of these risks to the stormwater drains. And it was really great to be able to get onto this and also be able to have tangible things that people could actually do to make a difference to improving our environmental compliance. So ultimately what we gained with the EMS was confidence with environmental compliance, more visibility of environmental projects and accountability across the business, plus, not to mention, a really clear system on how to manage it. And I have to say, one unexpected highlight is we found that audits a really positive experience. So we were quite nervous leading into our first audit, particularly other areas of the business which have audits which can be quite full on. But we actually found it a really positive experience, and our auditor was really engaging and gave us lots of ideas to work on for the following year. So that is all for me today. Thank you for your time, everyone. I'm happy to answer any questions in the Q&A.
Well, thanks so much, both Chris and Ange. That was really interesting. Thanks so much, Chris, for the overview and how environmental management systems work. And thanks, Angela, for your real-world experiences, because they are gold when it comes to understanding these sorts of things. So really happy about that. I mean, I made a few notes on the way through, just a couple of sort of key words, phrases that resonated. Certainly from your point of view, Chris, it's all about systematic approaches to things. And I loved the expression institutional knowledge, because in building these systems out, it's all about embedding the capability within the organization. And I'm pretty sure Angela would agree with that, actually. It's not about dealing with remote manuals somewhere. It's about really helping build capability within an organization to develop great outcomes. And you do that with tools, structures, procedures. And that's what the system's all about. It was really good. And Angela, I loved your comments around the pragmatism and practicality of the system, because we live in the real world and we have to solve real world problems. And pragmatism is a big part of that, so it's really important. I love the fact that your staff became really engaged, because engaged staff is everything. Without that, you're not in a happy place. And lastly, simple things matter. Really basic, simple things that you can do, but you might not have thought about, can have great outcomes. So that's all fabulous. So thanks so much for that. Hey, we're going to bounce straight into Q&A now. I'm going to pull up the list of questions and we'll see what we've got. The first, and what I'll do is I'll ask either Angela or Chris to address these questions, or possibly myself as well. So the first one is, do we need to have an expert to implement and manage an EMS? Now, that's a good question. I'd like Chris initially to talk to that, but then actually I wouldn't mind if Angela, if you would reflect on what your thoughts are. So the question is, do we need to have an expert to implement and manage an EMS?
Well, in as often is the case, the answer is it depends. And so a really, really large, complicated organization with lots of massive risks. So a big electroplating company, for example, yes, you would want to have somebody who really was an expert at what they do, who really understood everything, because they really need tight controls over everything. But often all you really need is somebody to just keep an eye on it and make sure everything in the system is happening when it's supposed to happen, and checking to see the results were what you expected. Now, my personal preference is that you don't have an expert, you have a team. So your green team, your environmental management team, they meet every month, every 2 months, and they together go through all the things that were supposed to have happened and make sure that the results were what you expected to see. So you're monitoring, you're comparing what you thought you would see to what you're actually seeing. And if they match, that's good. And if they don't match, whatever reason, you can investigate, find out what's going on and fix it. So short answer is no, I don't think you need an expert necessarily, but you certainly need to know who's going to do the work. And in preference, try and get a small group of people to do it so that you've got institutional knowledge there should somebody win lotto and decide not to come back to work on Monday morning.
Yeah, cool. Did you have any additional thoughts, Angela, that you wanted to share on that subject?
Probably just a couple of things just to build on what Chris said. So no, I don't think you need an expert, but you need someone committed to the cause. I found it really helpful with having our health and safety person working really closely with me, particularly with bronze. A lot of that stuff is quite compliance related, and that's really an area that they're quite good at. So yeah, but yes, I run some of the stuff that runs through our health and safety team, and the rest of it we actually run through our impact champs team, the projects.
Great.
So you
Thanks
just need
very
a
much,
leader.
guys.
Good point that Angela raises there. Remember, I said that all management systems are basically the same kind of thing. They're doing the same kind of understanding. You've got some experts in your organization who run the health and safety system. Borrow their knowledge, use their expertise, get them to help you design your process in the same way you do it for health and safety. Health and safety is, what are all the things we do? How could that hurt someone? How are we going to monitor it? How are we going to review it? Environmental is, what are all the things we do? How could it hurt the environment? How are we going to control it? How are we going to monitor it? How are we going to review it? Basically the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
So borrow from your health and safety people.
Okay, thanks, guys. So the next question probably is a Chris question. Is a company required to be certified to bronze before moving to gold?
It's required to have all of those components ready for assessment at the time of that audit for gold. You can do bronze and gold in one audit, but it's a modular approach. So the things that we're doing build on the layers below. So we start off with the foundational ideas, and then we build the next layer and the next layer and the next layer, and then we build the next layer of gold and then more gold and then to complete it. So often people, their very first audit will be a gold audit, and at that gold audit, they're assessed for gold and bronze.
Cool. Okay, thanks. The next question, I think actually, Angelo, you've probably referenced this already. The question is, did you have any one person to document all the requirements of Toitū? Who was reviewing the documents? So I think you intimated that yourself and the health and safety officer was really involved in that process.
Yeah, and also there are some documents that you do at the beginning of the process around your scope and your purpose and things, which we also ran past the exec, would make sure that you have senior level buy-in as well. Yeah. But yeah, the bulk of the work was done by myself and our health and safety lead.
Brilliant, thanks. Hey, another question, Angela. Angela, other than the stormwater management example, what are some of the other targeted environmental projects you're working on? Chance to boast. You've got a chance to boast here. Go on.
All sorts of stuff. I mean, there's some pretty obvious sitting ducks working in food manufacturing. We've got energy, like resource, water reduction, food waste is huge in our industry. And there's always opportunities to reduce food waste. But we have a few other things as well, litter around the streets, all those sorts of things as well. So we try and tackle the big things and also some small things as well. To make sure that we've got broad spectrum.
Great, thanks. Well, you've actually managed to answer the next two questions in one go. So one of those was, did you try and reduce food waste? And did you also look at wastewater? So that'd be a yes for both of those.
Yes.
There's another question. what was the
I think that's jump.
I hope
Jump
so.
from bronze to gold. That's my
Yeah,
guess on
yeah.
that one. So
Yeah, what was the
if you
jump
think
from
about it
bronze
this
to
way,
gold?
bronze level is what are all of the legal obligations? What must we do? Right? There's no discussion, no debate. You must do all of these legal compliance things as your foundation. And then gold level is what should we, what could we do? What's the voluntary things that we could do? So it's the projects that will reduce risks of bad things happening or make our lives easier or save us money, but we don't have to do them. We're choosing to do them.
Great. There's more questions around some of these, but I'm actually just going to go into one of the chat questions if I could, because it's quite interesting, and I think you'll probably want to have some input on this, possibly Chris. Have you got some examples of where you've been able to integrate your environmental management system and financial management system, especially environmental improvements that have also had a cost benefit? That's definitely an Angela question. So I guess the question is, yeah, do you see a marrying of the two systems, and are you able to use your financial data to demonstrate wins, essentially?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the very first places that the two things will integrate is deciding what's significant. So Angela will be nodding sagely at this one here. I was always saying, what's your top 5 consumable spends? What are you buying from other people? Those are the things that you might need to look up your supply chain and see, what do we know about the way that manufacturer made it? What do we know about their environmental management? And if we're buying a lot of it, it's possibly something that we need to be as efficient as possible. It may be creating lots of packaging waste and similar. So the financial information gives you a heads up in your EMS for what you should do. There's also a prime example that I had in the past was one of the Toyota dealerships that I was working with. They reduced their electricity bill by about 25% just by changing the way they ran their security lighting at night. And I had said to them, go around and do a proper assessment and work out what your light levels are, and little light meter will run around and do all this stuff. He just took out every third light bulb, and no one noticed.
No.
Like, one of the things that we tend to do is we over-engineer electrical things, but please don't take my advice to go and do it that way. You actually want to control your change and make sure that it's sensible and not putting anybody at risk.
Yeah, that's an interesting view.
Angela, did you have anything you wanted to add on the financial outcomes of
Yeah.
improvements?
So probably, sorry, I've got a couple of answers to this from different approaches, but one is just probably on a reporting perspective. There's quite a lot of number crunching and things. So I gather all data every month of our utilities and our waste, our rubbish bin pickups, our food waste, etc. And we report that alongside our month end reporting numbers. So we have our month end result of financials, and then here what's our scorecard for sustainability. But we absolutely use all of those numbers for business cases, and we always try and get an ROI if we can. It's not always perfect, but quite a good example of that was we had a waste reduction initiative, and I basically got it through the business because I said, look, we can get rid of that rubbish bin. We create less waste. You're not paying for it. You're not paying for the truck to come pick it up every day. And it was just a win-win for the business. It was less waste. It was less cost. So that's basically how I got it through. So if you get the financials to support it, then absolutely. But you've got to have that data. So you've got to find ways to get that data as well.
Yeah, thanks. That's really interesting. I'm going to bounce over the next question because you've really essentially answered that. But someone's asked, how do you manage and reduce plastic waste? And of course, plastic waste is a very, very hot topic at the moment. So we'd really like, if you've got anything to share in that space, it would be really good to know.
This is a challenging one, probably across the industry, across the supermarket. There's a couple of things that we've tried with plastic waste. Basically, to reduce the amount of new plastic reduced. We have tried to use recycled plastic, so our PET and products that will work for. We actually tried to implement that at a wider scale across the business, but unfortunately the packaging failed on our machines. But we also have signed up with APCO as well, and have started implementing the ARL program as well. So that has actually given us a lot of guidance in terms of selecting the right type of plastics and what happens to their end use plastic, aligning with the recycling system in New Zealand. In addition, as we're starting to apply on pack with consumers, they can actually properly dispose of their plastic waste. So it's not perfect. We have explored glass in the past, but that's just too difficult, too expensive for our type of business. But we do what we can to try and make the right choices, and thinking about it when it comes to MPD as well. What's the best type of packaging that we can use?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, like I said at the very start, this is all about pragmatic solutions, and it's not about letting perfect get in the way of better. So that's what it's all about.
The other thing that people might like to think about, there's kind of two levels here of plastic waste. There's the stuff that you end up with that you need to dispose of at your company, and that's often coming from your suppliers. So going and having a conversation with them about the packaging that they're providing you is something you can talk about. And then, as Angela had said, sometimes it's about what the recyclers in New Zealand can do, and often you can go and talk to the waste reduction officers at your regional council and lobby them to start to create new options for whatever it is that's causing you the biggest problem. Because the Waste Minimisation Fund is all about managing the needs, getting funding from the waste that's being put into landfills currently in order to do better in the future and reduce the waste that ends up there. So if something's not currently recyclable, there's no reason you can't start lobbying your local county industry group to try and get changes. And that's part of what we talk about in life cycle thinking. Just because you can't control something doesn't mean you can't influence the end outcome. It might take a bit longer, but you'll get there eventually if you keep the pressure on.
There's a couple of questions that have arisen, one on the chat and one in the Q&A around software. The specific question is, do you have a software-based EMS system? Because our current issue is that all the time it's taking to gather and analyze EMS data. So I don't know, Chris, can you shed some light on the tools that we use in our space for EMS data collection?
I guess there's a variety of different approaches here, and there's a lot of difference between establishing and implementing an EMS at the very beginning. When you're creating the EMS, it needs to be done in a way that works for your business, which is going to be led by how you currently do your health and safety management system. Running it in the future, and you want to simplify the gathering of that data into your system. And I have seen a bunch of different control systems that are used to do that. Some people use things like Mango or some of the equipment management programs. We have created just some very simple Microsoft-based tools based on the like, which people can set up to fill their data in. Depending on what you're looking at, you might want to have more assessment in that. So you actually want to do rolling averages and you want to compare it to targets and graph it all and all sorts of stuff like that. One size never fits all. And so I can't put my hand on my heart and say, look, you should use this process, you should use this system. I think it's for establishing and implementing at the very beginning, when you're starting the process, I wouldn't go near any formal system. You're better served to ask the sensible questions actually doing. Let's create a bit of a diagram of what we do. How do those things change the environment? Let's capture that information. Which of these things are most important? Let's capture that information. And just I don't care if you do it in crayon on the wall, or as some of my friends said, write it on a cow with crayon. It doesn't matter how you capture your thinking, but it's the act of doing the thinking. And sometimes trying to use a standard set of tools drives you down their way of doing the thinking, and that's not optimal.
Yeah, no, very interesting. Thanks. There's another question which we've actually addressed the question, but it's so important. I actually just want to go back and revisit it. The question is, I'm interested to understand. Sorry, that's bounced up the screen. How do you measure your aspects and impacts, and how do you determine the significance of each? And Angela, you talked about this earlier about the fact that, when you're going to onboard a new project or anything, it's a question of building out essentially a business case for it, looking at the costs, looking at the benefits, trying to quantify those sorts of things and justify it to, no doubt, the accountant who needs those sorts of justifications. It's so important because that's how we get things done, by building business cases. Have you got anything more to add to that?
Um, Sorry, can you repeat the question? I'm trying
Yeah,
to find what one it is in the chat.
yeah, sorry. It's I'm distilling it down. How easy has it been for you to build business cases to make
Uh,
environmental improvements? How do you
um,
do it?
Oh, it really depends on what it is. But I think basically with the prioritization tool and the aspects and impacts, it gives you quite a clear risk list right at the beginning. So fundamentally, we agree at a senior level that those are the areas that we are going to look at.
Right.
So we manage and what the particular KPI is and things like that, we sort of manage that as we go through. But we do have senior alignment on what those particular areas are right from the get-go before we commence the year.
Yeah, brilliant. Cool.
Yeah, I'll stick my sixpence in there as well. In identifying what your aspects and impacts are, it's really important to ask the question, what are all the things staff do on our behalf? Where do they do them? So we generally start people off by creating some kind of a process map of what are the steps in what you do as a business to make your product or your service or whatever, from the moment that people enter the moment inwards goods comes in, what happens next, what happens next, what happens next, what happens next. That's the normal stuff that you do every day. And there's going to be stuff you do in the office, and there's going to be procurement, and there's going to be stuff that happens in the yard, and there's going to be maintenance stuff, and there's going to be all sorts of stuff that's happening. You create a bit of a map of all of those things. Then you're thinking about, well, what else happens? Based on these things, what else needs to happen? What are the abnormal things that happen? Predictable, but infrequent. Might only happen once a year, might happen every 6 months, every 3 months, but it's not all the time. Capture that thinking. Look at all of that and say, in an emergency, would any of these things go ballistic? Capture those things. Those are your aspects. They're the things you're doing. Then you look at each aspect and you say, okay, from an environmental point of view, what are the raw materials and resources that go into that? What are the waste products that come out of that? Okay, that's how you're changing the environment. Then you do a significance assessment, or actually, then, then you do a life cycle assessment. So you're going to be saying, well, the inputs, what do we know about the suppliers? Have they got any environmental credentials? Are they causing pollution? What are they doing? End of life of our product, what's happening down there? It might go to a retailer, it might go to a wholesaler, it might go to a retailer, it might go to the customer. At each of those steps, what do we know that's going on there? Do we need to talk to those people? Okay, so now we've got all the stuff that we're doing, and we've got our life cycle stuff, and we decide what's significant. And generally, we get people to ask 4 questions. There's a bunch of ways of doing this. There's a bunch of tools, but is it a legal obligation to do it in a certain way? If it is, it's significant. You have to do it. There's no choice. If you don't do it, you'll end up in court. Is it a big part? Is it a big environmental effect? Are we spending a lot of money on it? Is it substantial? Do we have interested parties, people we care about who are going to be angry or disappointed if we're doing it wrong? Yes, it's significant. Is it a big climate change effect? Are we either creating a lot of greenhouse gases, or if there's a climate disaster, this thing's going to go all shook for us, right? It's a supply chain that's weak in severe weather events, or if the trains aren't running, or if something's not happening, that'll be a problem. And finally, is it something we're already controlling because we've decided in the past it's important? If any of those things it's significant. We need to do something about it. You're then going to say, well, okay, what's the big idea behind this? What's my objective? Based on the objective, if it works, what am I going to see? That's my target. Okay, how am I going to do this? That's my project. Boom, you've got an environmental management system.
Thanks so much, guys. Hey, look, we've got only 2 minutes to go, and there's a couple of questions asking the same thing. And I've actually had a number of sales calls myself where this issue has come up. People want to know about the interplay between B Corp and an environmental management system, specifically our Enviromark programs, how they interact together, whether they help each other. We've only got You've got about a minute. So could either one of you guys just give us a very high level view on that?
Angela, you've done it.
Yeah. So the EMS is just one section of B Corp. So B Corp is a total business assessment. So it goes through your entire business. So they're very complementary, and it actually, from a points perspective, scores a lot of points in the B Corp assessment. So for us, I would say it's a critical part of gaining B Corp. Yes. And the standards have actually changed. So it's probably mandatory now. I haven't actually checked. But yeah, they're quite different. So they're complementary, but they're different. But B Corp has a much broader business sustainability certification than, whereas this is just environment.
Brilliant. Thanks. Chris, 30-second input.
B Corp looks at social sustainability as well as environmental sustainability. So if you think of it in your schooling, your Venn diagram, environmental's like this and B Corp's like this. It incorporates it all, but it's much wider, much broader.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Guys, we've run out of time. I wanted to thank, first of all of the attendees for taking valuable time out of your day, because I know everyone's busy all the time. That's just the nature of the world we live in. And I also wanted to thank both Angela and Chris for sharing their time and insights. It's been really interesting. And just to remind, if you've got any questions, there are a lot of questions we didn't get to, but please add them to the Q&A if you've got new ones, and we'll endeavour to get you guys a written response. Other than that, it's time to go out and enjoy the weather, because it's beautiful out there, and have a wonderful day. Thanks so much, guys. Most appreciated.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.